The artist Sonia Boyce has been chosen to represent Great Britain at the Venice Biennale.
Diamonds are forever.
I was there when she got the phone call from the British Council.
And I was not expecting it in any shape or form, you know. I think my first response was, why? You know, I couldn't understand why my name was even on the list.
And then she said that she's in Venice. And to me, I wasn't quite sure how big that was. But my dad was like, oh my God, Maya, go to a shop, get some champagne.
Venice Biennale is kind of the Olympics. It's the world coming together and trying to put together what they see as the vanguard of its time. And for Sonia to be part of that narrative is really, really important.
Commentators have remarked on the fact that Sonia is the first black woman artist to represent Britain in the 120-odd years of its history, which is incredibly significant because the British Pavilion is a showcase for British nationhood and how Britain wants to represent itself on the world stage.
Sonia is still best known for her large-scale drawings from the 1980s.
You know, how can you see this person who is obviously black? Can she be seen to be English? The whole idea of otherness is very difficult for me to grapple with because I don't see myself as other. I see myself as integral to this historical process, art history.
But for over 30 years, Sonia Boyce has been exploring a very different kind of art. Disruptive, provocative, playful, uncompromising. And in Venice, she'll be revealing a project that continues her career-long exploration of overlooked female voices, based on a vast archive of black British women in the music industry.
It's not that often that someone gives you this opportunity to say, well, what do you feel like doing? Ask me on the day when it opens, when I'll be feeling really sick and like, oh my God, why did I think I could do this? But, you know, as a proposition, as a conceit, yeah, why not?
It's June 2021. Sonia's invited 3 singers to meet at Abbey Road Studios. Jackie Dankworth, the daughter of British jazz legend Cleo Lane, pop star Tanita Tikaram, who rose to fame in the 80s, and Poppy Ajuda, an emerging young soul singer.
Literally, when I came through the red doors and saw this place, I just thought, oh, we've got to do this. I am, you know, I have to keep every 30 seconds saying to myself, calm down, calm down. I am so excited. I think it's going to be beautiful. We've got Poppy, we've got Tanita, we've got Jackie, and we've got Erilyn.
Sonia invited composer Erilyn Wallen to help guide the session. The singers have been asked to improvise, and whatever is captured will become the centerpiece of the Venice Biennale Pavilion.
You know, I know that that's really scary, to just say, well, actually, I'm not going to direct you. And I think they were really very nervous about, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, I don't know what that means. You know, I'm just really happy that you're prepared to come and walk through the door and be here, and something will happen.
So imagine you're lions.
We are lions.
You are lions, I know. But a sound that is a sound you wouldn't normally make singing. That's a good growl.
All of us are a bit nervous of the filming and doing something that we don't usually do. It just makes you feel like a child. At one point, I just think, I don't care, I just want to have fun, even if I look a bit like a plonker.
They were making quite extraordinary sounds that didn't have to be subscribed by being feminine. And for me, there's a moment of something, of liberation in that moment.
I'm just going to give you 3 words, and these can be sung in very definite rhythms, and the words are, I am queen.
I am queen.
I am queen.
I am queen.
I am queen. I am queen.
I think everybody in the room, their skin became really prickly. There was something that kind of generated by each of them saying, I am queen, and then it gets really competitive.
I am queen. I am queen.
It just gets really funny and complicated at the same time.
I am queen. I am queen.
That's just brilliant.
Sonia's inspiration came from Dada performance art and from jazz scat.
I am really interested in particularly the relationship between jazz scat and Dada because they emerged at the same time in terms of the early 20th century.
That's right.
And they speak to each other, and they speak to each other in the same language, I think. This is kind of part of the birth of modernity.
They sparkle, they bubble, gonna get you in a whole lot of trouble. There's the ankle lurking, you're overworking them.
I think of you, I think of Dada, I think of surrealism, I think of the tales of the unexpected, I was going to say. That's what's going on here, isn't it?
Particularly as adults, we're kind of discouraged from playing. I don't know why that happens, because actually it's in play that you know where the edges of things are, but also that you might tip over that edge or that boundary of what you're supposed to do and find another territory.
You're saying what Picasso said, that we start as children, we play, and then we forget.
Why do we forget?
Every child is an artist, said Picasso. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. It was here in the Whitechapel Gallery in the late 60s that 7-year-old Sonia wandered in and first discovered art.
Children on the estate that I lived on, we had such independent lives from our parents. We'd get called in at 10 o'clock at night. Mums from various balconies would shout, it's time to come in now. So we would be out and about. And I can't remember how I first went to the Whitechapel Art Gallery, but it was within, walking reach of where we lived. And I used to just go and walk in there and just kind of think, oh, this is interesting. There was always something to see and to know.
I was really interested in that your instinct for drawing came very early on.
When you're learning to write letters, you do your A's and your B's, and there's a particular way of scripting. And I loved doing this so much. I used to drive my mum crazy because I used to write and draw on everything. So there was always lots of writing on wallpaper or on sometimes on her linen. I just enjoyed that activity of making a mark.
Every surface is a workable surface in my mum's eyes. I mean, when I was younger, she would let me draw on the walls. She would literally she's like, yeah, go ahead. Got my friends involved. They all loved it, and she would just sit and watch because she was like fascinated with what, if you let a child be who they want to be, what would they do with that?
But Sonia's not just an obsessive artist, she's also an obsessive archivist. She's accumulated a vast collection of objects and materials. Her curiosity knows no bounds. For over 20 years, she's been hoarding items relating to black British women in the music industry. She's named it the Devotional Collection, and it's the inspiration behind her Venice Biennale pavilion.
Well out of control at the moment. It would probably take me about a year of just working on it to get it back into a semblance of control, if I don't gather anything else in the meantime, because I am addicted.
Yeah, there's just a lot of crap in the house. You can't say that. She can't go into a record store without buying 15 records.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also interesting because they become artworks in our house.
Diamonds are forever.
She is a hoarder, but she has a good reason to be a hoarder.
Yeah, and every item has meaning to it that may be unknown to the rest of the family, but my mum knows. My mum knows this is useful. And I trust it. I trust it. Majority of the time.
You know those pictures you have on milk cartons? Have you seen this? We might just have to have one of Sonia and then put it in charity shops and saying, if you see this woman, please ring this number and please do not let her buy any items of the following. And that will be a long list.
In Venice, Sonia will devote an entire room of her pavilion to items she's collected over the past 6 months, mostly found in this Brixton charity shop.
I come in here about once a week, sometimes every day, and sometimes it's like, yeah, keep walking. Then other times I cannot help myself. See this? The Cookie Crew. I've got to have. And then, of course, Mel and Kim. Just this visit has, provided dividends.
Hi, how are you? I'd like to show you things that maybe you could have for your exhibition. This is my favorite poster of Tanita in concert.
There is some stuff that's been donated by a particular fan of Tanita's, and this is a real deep fan.
What I love about Sonia is she's doing a completely alternate history of music, isn't she, really? Which has always been dominated by the male gaze. I think it's a very joyful gaze she has. It's about music that's touched us all, and I feel very shocked and happy to be part of that.
Some people think little girls should be seen and not heard, but I think, oh, bondage, up yours! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Sonia's interest in the visibility of black women began back in 1980. Her drawing talent won her a place at Stourbridge College of Art in the West Midlands. She was one of very few black students, but one day she spotted a poster for the first National Convention of Black Art, organised by a group of students called the Black Art Group.
A room of over 200 black artists, some at art schools, some professional. I'm just thinking, how did I not know this? The very, very young members of the Black Art Group who had organised it, and they were like teenagers. They'd organised this national conference at Wolverhampton Poly, And I met lots of people who then I became part of a network.
Is this where you met Claudette Johnson and Lubena?
Yeah, exactly where I met them.
40 years on, Sonia is meeting Claudette, a founding member of the Black Art Group and a big influence on Sonia's early work. They're here at Tate Britain, where their work is being displayed in the critically acclaimed exhibition, Life Between Islands.
I used to scour newspapers for images of black people. You know, it was the time of thinking about political struggle. And I think at the time I felt very identified with the figure in red, the more militant figure, because I felt things need to change now. Did you feel recognition when you looked at the work, those early works?
I felt not only recognition, I felt, oh my goodness, someone can do this.
One of Sonia's well-known early pieces was Missionary Position 2, a double portrait of Sonia that questioned her Christian upbringing.
Well, the thing is that my mum used to come a lot to exhibitions that I would have. She'd always sigh and say, could you just do something nice?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can clearly draw. Can't you just draw something? Couldn't you just draw some flowers or
Landscape?
Or landscape? Yeah, I knew at the same time it was an aspect of trying to be protective, because if you raise your head above the parapet, you know, you're really going to get it.
Another young woman Sonia met 40 years ago was the artist Lubena Hamid. In 2017, Lubena made history as the first black woman to win the Turner Prize. This year, she has her own retrospective at Tate Modern. It was Lubena who first convinced Sonia that she should become an artist.
She said, send me your slides, and I kind of thought, no, she doesn't want to see. I wasn't convinced about my own work at that point. And then she kept sending me, literally, postcards saying, I thought you were going to send me your slides. And then the last one was, send me your slides in really big letters. And I sent her my slides, and she organised the very first exhibition that I was in, which was at the Africa Centre, immediately after leaving college, which is pretty much unheard of.
She was making work about her childhood, about her mother, about her mother's friends, about conversations she was eavesdropping on, about food. It was big, it was poster-sized, it was a big window into that world. Black audiences see their lives played out, and no one had ever done that.
I started the drawing, I was thinking about when I was a child. I was always sort of tagging onto my mum's skirt, you know, sort of hiding behind her, listening to all these conversations, you know, getting all the juicy bits on who did what when. And I think the reasons why I started to do domestic scenes was because that's where I felt our whole creativity was.
I really wanted to find a way to speak about the experience of kind of growing up within a Caribbean household. There was always wallpaper.
There was always wallpaper?
There was always wallpaper. Well, if I draw I've got the figure, maybe if I can just put a wallpaper design in the background, that will do the job of filling in the background. And it worked.
The fact that pattern plays such a huge role, I feel, is, I feel like there's almost something subversive there, as if those patterns reveal to us as viewers a way to move into the work, but also to obscure perhaps an easy reading. The more you look, the more you see.
I'm looking at this, and of course this is the Caribbean, it's also the past, it's also colonialism, India here and Australia, you know, it's a sort of...
It's the empire, and a child of the empire.
And that's you, of course.
Yes, me, yeah.
And what have you called this?
Lay back, keep quiet, and think of what made Britain so great. Yeah. There is, there is a folding in of both a kind of William Morris type wallpaper, with also in these kind of crucifixes. This is taken from wallpaper that was made to commemorate Queen Victoria's 50th anniversary over the Empire. So there, I'm drawing directly from wallpaper in this work.
In 1985, the Thin Black Line exhibition opened at the ICA Gallery in London. Curated by Lubaina Hamid, it brought together 11 emerging female artists, including Sonia, who exhibited a powerful new work.
Mr. Friend of the Family pays a visit while everybody else is out.
I mean, it's purposefully
We all went
addressing...
silent when we saw this.
She arrived with this work, which was black and white. So all those expectations about the work being these beautiful colours was a shock. The text was all about Mr. Close Friend of the Family. And you could see all kinds of layers of memory about the big issue of how vulnerable little girls are. And I realised in that moment that there was a work that was kind of monumentally significant.
Explain this one then.
This is me recounting an incident that happened at home. I'm sure not unfortunately not uncommon for many females, of someone who basically tried to rape me while I was at home. This person who was known by the family, and just felt I needed to, at this point I was needing to speak about things that I didn't feel had been spoken about in the visual arts before.
Nobody had discussed this unspoken, I suppose you might call it now, Me Too moment.
And it's very clearly an address to the audience. I wouldn't say in an accusatory way, but more in a kind of help me.
All those earlier works that perhaps one was drawn to by their beauty, one then realised that they too were deeply reflecting the everyday being something that's normal and ordinary, but has a history to it.
A year later, Sonia created a work which many regard as her masterpiece. She ain't holding them up, she's holding on. Some English Rose.
It moves me on so many levels. To me, it's full of dreaming figures. They're all dreaming. I see that as you, Sonia, as a child. And your eyes are kind of looking to the future. And your father also, he's dreaming. And your sister's looking out to what might be coming.
She Ain't Holding Them Up is a significant piece. As a curator, it's a piece that really signals the arrival of a generation of artists who are actually beginning to shift what it means to be black and British. There's two girls in the work that are being held up. I swear to God, those two girls look like our two daughters.
The way she's drawn her family is very conservative, very kind of what you'd expect of a Christian family. The fact that she's drawn herself in a way that is able to handle and hold her family and everything that comes along with that, I think that's quite cool.
The spiky blue hair, the hairy armpits. It was just groundbreaking. Because I hadn't seen a black woman represented in this way. She's a punk, essentially. She's forging a new direction.
She's muscular. She's absolutely muscular. There's a weight to this, and she needs to signify that she can do it. And it's not just that she's talking about, the role that she plays in her family or the role that she plays in society, but also the role that she plays as an artist.
There are two very key references. On the one side, there's Frida Kahlo and her painting, my grandparents, my parents, myself. And then the other reference is René Magritte, This Is Not a Pipe. I think it's called The Treachery of Images.
Yes.
Where every time, even though I understand the argument that, you know, it's not a pipe because it's a painting, it's about representation and what representation can do, immediately every time I see that image, I say, well, yeah, that's a pipe. And so that's part of what informs She Ain't Holding Them Up, She's Holding On, is this idea that you think she's holding them up, but the title's saying she's actually holding on to them. And that play on what is representation, what is perception, how things can be contradictory in terms of what you're looking at. Actually, when I was making this work, I knew this was the last drawing of this kind that I was going to make, because I didn't know exactly what I was going to do afterwards, but I realised that I didn't want to be the central figure in the work.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
It was like a real, a kind of marker of an end of something, but I didn't know why.
The decision to stop drawing herself was a huge turning point for Sonia, made especially difficult because it coincided with a momentous moment of success. In 1987, Missionary Position 2 was acquired by the Tate, making Sonia Boyce the first black woman to become part of the National Art Collection.
I cannot imagine having that much pressure so early on in your career and then being like, what do I do now?
Yeah. I'm not 20 yet, but at this age, like, she was able to accomplish so much and be sure of herself, yet still so unsure of what the future will hold for her. And I feel like that's kind of explored in this one a little bit. Kind of that transition of looking at herself and then looking at wider society, kind of her place within the UK and British culture. Even though she's still literally at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
She's also quite literally looking outwards and being like, who am I? What else is there to explore?
Have you been just lucky, or what do you think it is?
It is partly luck. I mean, there's lots of different issues within the art world. I don't know whether this is me just being cynical. It doesn't like to have too many people that are doing what they consider to be the same sort of thing. And I've always been popular, and I don't quite understand why.
In 1988, Sonia debuted the collage Talking Presence, back where her story started, at the Whitechapel Gallery, making her the first black woman to have an exhibition there, a label she's carried ever since.
There's this accolade, you know, the first black British female artist, but what that tells me is somehow we're in the wrong place. Like there's something wrong somehow, that how did you get here?
But this goes all the way back through your art career, doesn't it? You know, you're always that single figure. What are you doing here? This is not what you do.
It becomes this very awkward responsibility. It's like you can't mess up somehow, or you can't feel that you can mess up. You can't just do what you do.
But at the same moment, it is a door opening. It tells us that this is possible.
What gets to me is not to be able to talk about the work. The work for me is doing something. It's doing something in the world. And if it just constantly reverts back to my physiognomy, then I get really pissed off, because it's like I'm working really hard on this thing over there, and you want to talk about this thing over here.
Instead of frown, what's the point in being down?
It's 6 weeks before the Biennale opens, and Sonia's installing her artwork in the British Pavilion. She's created 10 film pieces and a series of specially designed wallpapers made with images from the Abbey Road shoot.
Also, this is now up. Yes.
The stage we're at the moment, it's about 2/3 of the way through, being finished.
I think all the wallpaper now has been done, which is fantastic.
You can still see echoes of her early work, the work that sort of propelled her to be acquired at such a young age by the Tate. The colour, the joy, the ambiguity. Sonia really has something important to say to an audience now.
The final room will be a series of golden sculptures, encasing each of the music archive objects collected from charity shops.
I'm a maker, you know, getting involved in the making is the joy of it. Yeah, I'm just getting messy, basically, and loving. I mean, how can you not? I mean, that's just. I want people to see that I'm having a sense of humour. You know, for me, the kind of glitter and the gold, that I want there to be this, not only this surprise, but a surprise that makes people laugh a bit. Like, this is fun. Probably the highest one is going to be that first big sculpture with Shirley Bassey on it. One, because of just her gesture and she's looking down. I was really excited to get the Annabelle Lewin, because it kind of speaks of my youth. Seeing this small cassette of Vanessa May, because you don't really hear about her anymore. Sunita can be a little bit like Marmite for some people, love her or hate her. That kind of genre of music is not considered high art or kind of serious music or rude music. But I love the fact that she's in the collection. It's not that often that someone gives you this opportunity to say, well, what do you feel like doing? What will make me think, oh, I wonder what will happen if I do this? Ask me on the day when it opens, when I will be feeling really sick and like, oh my God, why did I think I could do this?
The Venice Biennale began at the end of the 19th century in the Giardini Park, which includes 28 national pavilions. It's the oldest and most prestigious showcase for contemporary art worldwide. Britain and France sit side by side, and in a strange twist of fate, the artist representing France this year was Sonia's real-life next-door neighbour in Brixton at the turn of the 90s. Zineb Sadira still lives in the same flat today, and they remain close friends.
What was great is when you find out, you straight away called me, I think a day or two later.
I could not have been prouder, to be honest.
Me too, yeah. And then from the beginning, I knew also that I wanted to do something, create some kind of link. I was dreaming things like, I'm gonna build a tunnel, or a bridge, or put a thread from the French pavilion to the British pavilion. I was like kind of coming with all these kind of silly ideas. Actually, I remember when I was called by someone to tell me that I was representing France, I didn't believe it. Oh, but shouldn't I be representing England because I'm here for 30 years? And I often think perhaps we shouldn't talk about representing a country because this is not possible. You know, I am French, I am British, and I am Algerian also, and I am Muslim, and I am Arab, and I am Berber, and I am a woman, and I am so many other things. Dreams.
fictions, truths, archives, and realities. To write a film about films, my friends become my audience, my actors, thinkers, and comrades.
Zineb's Venice installation will be a celebration of her mixed French, Algerian and British identity. Part of the pavilion will recreate her Brixton living room and feature an interview with her friend Sonia Boyce, who first encouraged her to explore her African heritage.
I felt quite isolated at one point when I arrived here, because I was only Algerian. I didn't know anyone who was Algerian, or even Moroccan or Tunisian for that matter. And you helped me become mature in myself. You know, I'm more accepting of myself. I don't think you realize the impact you and others had on helping me to become an adult, but also an artist, you know.
Sonia also struggled in the 90s. She'd begun to experiment with collage, photography and film. But the art world's interest in her work diminished. And she worked part-time in a canteen to pay the bills.
It was a period when Sonia was finding her voice as an artist. I mean, everyone loved those pastel drawings and wanted Sonia to keep on making more and more of those drawings. And I think that's always a danger when an artist, you know, gets a lot of success early on, that people want them to continue making the work that had got them the critical acclaim in the first place. But being Sonia, she was always challenging herself and wanting to explore new ways of working, investigate different kinds of ideas, really challenge herself as an artist.
In the early 90s, I started doing work about hair. I was literally at that point just feeling my way with just making things. So it's quite stretchy and quite funny. They're quite funny things. It started out literally because I'd taken my hair out of braids and then started replaiting them and then thinking, oh, well, they're quite interesting. And I was doing these things at home and they were growing and growing and growing in the corner of the kitchen. And I kind of realised that I was much more interested in these hair objects, that I was kind of not knowing what I was doing with them and why I was doing them, and they're thinking, oh God, they're really ugly and what is this stuff? But found that more interesting than what I was doing in the studio. So I then abandoned what I was doing in the studio and just took these hair objects to the studio and started just thinking, okay, let's just see where this will go.
There was hair everywhere, and then there was like lots of bags of hair, and then Sonia started collecting hair. So it just became this whole thing about almost we were like at the hair museum at that point of time.
People then started to give me their hair. They cut off bits and give, because they knew that I was making these little sculptures.
So this is a sculpture that Sonia made in 1993. It's called The Comforter. She was making these objects that were participatory, things that you could pick up and touch and turn around. Some of these objects are strange and disturbing. Others are things that you really want to, like this comforter, just want to hold and have close to you.
Sonia put out an advert inviting members of the public to be photographed wearing an afro wig.
And in my head, I kind of thought, oh, we'll probably get about 10 or maybe even more, 20 people. I took over 900 photographs in one day.
Wow.
The vast majority of people who came were white. They had this image that they wanted to try on. There was one particular couple, they wanted to see themselves being photographed kissing and really just making out. And I kind of thought that this was really interesting, that this was an opportunity for them to fulfill a certain kind of fantasy.
Yeah.
We hadn't said in the little kind of notice about the day that I was black. So people came along, and I think they just hadn't thought about it until they saw me. And then all these questions you could see was going on in their head about
what's going on here.
What's going on here?
I think it's like a natural progression of her work to move it from further and further away from herself and more about society. I think originally she was trying to figure out how she fit in society. And now it's kind of like, okay, how do people fit into society? What kind of conversations can we have about societal views?
Disruptive, playful, and provocative, Sonia Boyce is never afraid to ask uncomfortable questions. Her most controversial piece took place at the Manchester Art Gallery in 2018, and it was prompted by an incident that occurred during a workshop that Sonia was leading.
There's this middle-aged white man who's walking around the galleries, and he's got an iPad. And he's walking around, and I could not make this up. He's going around and he's photographing particularly where there are naked or semi-naked women. And he's making these very guttural sounds. And he's really going, oh, that's gorgeous, that is lovely. And he gets to Hylas and the nymphs, and another man comes up to him and says, well, you do know that they're meant to be prepubescent girls. And he goes, oh, that's even better. At which point, unanimously, everybody said, that painting's got to come down.
In response, Sonia staged an evening of performance art as a surreal commentary on who belongs in galleries and on what we display on the walls.
Come and look at some naughty little jubblies jiggling away there. Do you like that? You love it, don't you? Yes, filthy, dirty, sexual sex.
Manchester was such a magical evening, taking a bit of Manchester's iconic Canal Street culture and putting it in a museum context. And that was quite transgressive. You didn't get the sense that it was going to snowball into what it became. It was just joyous.
5 acts were drag queen takeovers, and the 6th act was the removal of Hylas and the Nymphs by John William Waterhouse.
Painting came down and it was very anticlimactic. Nobody really was paying attention because there's 6 drag artists. A week later, my mum comes in and she's like, yeah, no, it's gone global. We're getting like calls from New York, Australia, Japan.
The world almost fell off its axis because a 19th century painting was taken off the wall.
Yeah.
The Manchester Art Gallery has removed a 19th century painting that depicts young naked girls. The decision to remove the picture was taken to deliberately start a discussion about how images like that should be displayed.
I think a lot of the uproar was about my mum being black and a woman taking down a painting in a British gallery.
By a white man.
Yeah.
In 2 days' time, the Venice Biennale opens, and Sonia will reveal her finished pavilion.
My aim was for it not to be a kind of easy listening experience. I really wanted those different kinds of sounds to be, particularly as they're coming from women, that it's not a pretty experience. Their voices are beautiful, but not necessarily pretty. It's very, very noisy. It's a very noisy experience. But I'm hoping that people will, when they go into spaces, they get captured by the sound of that particular room. When you move from room to room, there's a kind of, it's almost like there's this kind of transition from one room and then you hear the next room as you walk through. So I'm hoping people really feel that. My aim was to have something really glittery and sparkly and lots of things for people to kind of spend time with. It looks better actually than I imagined it was going to look. The memorabilia, what can I say? It's good to see it like this.
A key influence and collaborator has been the experimental vocalist Elaine Mitchener.
True, 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 true culture, the test of true. True culture is the ability, is the ability, is the ability to move among men.
I guess with Sonia and the way that she brings different kinds of artists together with coming from different disciplines or different approaches, she's really wants to evoke this playful environment. And in some weird way, it's almost like speaking in tongues, that people receive that message or they interpret and understand it in their own way. And there's a strange, wonderful connection that comes from that. And I think that's what she's kind of exploring and mining.
The starting point for this piece is a piece of 15th century sacred music. Which is then kind of brutally interrupted by this other voice, who is an artist in their own right, Mikhail Kourakis, who coughs and stutters and starts to make these guttural noises. And then it reverts back to the choir. And then there's this play between the choir and Mikhail Kourakis. Eventually what you see is that this is an encounter between two very different registers and two very different traditions and forms of communication. One which seems kind of well established, you know, has history, has confidence. And then this other intervention, which is much more stilted and awkward and, you know, someone struggling to communicate. And I think the work really engages with that sense of what it means to be a migrant, grappling with trying to communicate in a context which is completely alien and using speech which is very uncomfortable and difficult.
Because it's this juxtaposition of things that we don't automatically put together, but are put together through collage, that actually it's almost announcing moments of disruption.
Yeah.
Moments of societal kind of trauma or anxiety, that actually that is the role of collage.
So I realise how important this word is, the way you discussed it. And in relation to your own work, the performance work, the work there, that's collage too.
It's collage.
You do those things and then we're going to see how
we relate.
We relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, if you like, multiculturalism is collage.
It is collage. It is collage. And, you know, and it's complex. Some people take it as a threat, and some people take it as a really great opportunity. You can never guarantee how it's going to be received.
The nervousness is creeping, even though it's very quiet here. I always give this impression that I'm very calm. I don't work at that. It just is how other people perceive me to be.
She's the least calm person I
Yeah,
know.
opposite. Every time someone says, "Oh, your mum's so calm," I was like, the same woman who birthed me is calm. No, thank you.
Not calm, not collected, not any of it, if I'm being completely honest. Sorry, Sonia, but it's not true.
In this last moment of calm, Sonia's visiting former student Alberta Whittle, who's also making history as the first black woman to represent Scotland.
I've known Alberta for many, many years, so I'm really excited to see what she's produced for her show. Oh, wow, that is an amazing jumper. You look amazing. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have you here.
I was in my early to mid-20s when I first met Sonia. There's a lot of insecurity in that time, and you are trying to figure out what to make, how to get your work out. And she said, you know, just don't let people try and pigeonhole you into doing one kind of medium or one kind of approach. And I always remember that. And at first I couldn't quite get what she meant, but now that I'm older, I realize that, you know, that sometimes the art world does try and like put you in a particular box, but, you know, you must be true to yourself. And I really took that advice very, very close to heart.
Alberta's film ruminates on the death of Sheku Bayo, who died in police custody in Scotland in 2015.
I've lost my bearings now. You were there, handling a cutlass, the scent of tobacco on your hands. Did you pour libations as you threaded beads? Whispering prayers and incantations, did I visit you in your dreams? I lick my finger and taste salt.
So I am nervous?
I am terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. You know, you're so kind of like vulnerable in this strange moment where you've been working on this for like, you know, now 2 years. And suddenly it's out there.
I did have thoughts the other week of standing in front of the door and saying, well, actually, I think I may have changed my mind. It's not quite ready yet. Could come back next year.
It's press day at the Venice Biennale, and this morning, the great and the good of the global art world descend.
It's been really busy. People are running through the gates. The analogy is the Harrods sale to me. People are really desperate to come in. Good morning. This attracts everybody from all over the world. There's Dutch press, Swedish, American, the Sunday Times, the Evening Standard, the Telegraph. Thankfully, everybody's been in.
The way in which my work is very much about improvisation.
The Biennale judges will also tour the city to decide who will win the award for Best Pavilion.
There is no bigger, more tangible honour, really, in art in Britain than to be the representative at the Venice Biennale. I mean, for better or for worse, you know, you're remembered for it. And some people come out of it gloriously, some people don't. So it's a big deal.
The British scene at the moment is more dynamic and more diverse than it's ever been. So you have Sonia in this pavilion, and then you have Sonia's great friend Zineb, who is connected to Brixton, as well as representing France, and Alberta representing Scotland. It's a really, really exciting time for Britain, and I think we understand better than ever just how rich and deep the multiple strands of British art are.
It's really exciting to represent Scotland, but also it is terrifying. You know, it's really terrifying because, you know, we're part of a larger conversation. And I'm really curious to see how this exhibition will be perceived in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Sonia's pavilion fits into a wider theme, the prominence of female artists. As well as the national pavilions, there's a mammoth central exhibition spread across 2 sites, which is highlighting female artists throughout modern art history. Sonia's daughters have gone to explore.
How are you feeling? Excited. I mean, apparently this is the most female artist ever to be exhibited, and also there's a lot of people of colour and black people.
Exactly.
Who I love.
Exactly. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited.
Yeah. This is just overwhelmingly huge.
The presence of women at this year's Biennale is more than a theme. I mean, it's a sledgehammer hitting people like me over the head with, you know, feelings of guilt and remorse about why we haven't noticed before. I mean, I think out of the 213 artists represented in the main exhibition, 191 are women. But there's no question about it. This is the Women's Biennale.
Feels like one of my literal dreams.
This is really freaking me out.
This is surreal. This is surreal.
I think there is such a dialogue between Sonia's work and the Central Pavilion. The Central Pavilion is really rooted in surrealism, this idea of collage and artists trying to comprehend what was happening at such a politically tumultuous time. The fact that these women are given this platform is just a momentous occasion, I think, and a real marker of change.
We are looking at Precious Okoyomon, who is a poet, an artist, and a chef. Which, in this major installation piece that explores materials within colonialization and just the idea of decaying matter and life and beings and nature. I think it's important to know that majority of the artists within the exhibition are female. However, I don't think that should be at the front of our thoughts when looking at the work. As an artist myself, I wouldn't want people to view me as a female artist, a black female artist. I just want to be an artist.
Hopefully, at one point, that wouldn't need to be, you know, as a selling point, but at the moment, it has to be a selling point, especially with my mum's exhibition, you know, the first black woman to ever represent Britain. Fantastic. She is 60 now, though. She wants it to not wait for everybody else to get that far. She wants a younger generation to take over.
Back in the Giardini, huge queues have gathered for the grand opening of the national pavilions, and debates about representation and nationalism are everywhere. Simone Lee is the first African-American woman to represent the USA. The Russian pavilion stands empty and guarded. There's a hastily built Ukrainian installation, and queues have formed to see Zeneb Sadira's French pavilion. It's a celebration of her Algerian heritage, and it's taken on new significance in a week of a French election, which could see the far-right Marine Le Pen become president.
So what's interesting about your show, about Sonia's, and about this general Biennale is that there is a conversation going on.
Yeah, and the conversation that is that the notion of nation perhaps is, you know, it's not to be really, because yes, it's a French pavilion, but I'm British, I'm French and Algerian, and beyond that, and the same with Sonia. So, you know, this idea of representing a country perhaps shouldn't exist anymore, you know. I mean, and France is multicultural, Britain is multicultural, and I think every single pavilion is trying to say that also somehow.
Except that in the real world, it's almost the opposite. Nationalism is a word, you know, France, look at what's happening now. The election hasn't yet happened.
This is the backlash of this kind of politics. More the right wings are going to be in power, are going to become powerful, more artists like me and Sonia and others will also be more vocal about it.
I was anxious about this pavilion. You never know. There have been quite a few that haven't pulled it off. I love the ornament, the opulence, the decorative. All these things used to be dirty words in the kind of, white cube art world. And Sonia's taken them, reclaimed them, and made this incredible, sound-filled, joyous pavilion. I mean, it's a real triumph, I think.
I am queen. I am queen.
I love that she brought wallpaper to Venice. I love that she brought wallpaper to Venice.
I knew she would. She cannot help herself. She loves a bit of wallpaper.
I think it's incredible. I'm so proud.
There's a real deep politics around questions about difference and rebellion and about how you find your voice. It's like a sort of altarpiece to black women singers with all the CDs and the albums and the memorabilia.
And Tanita Tikaram, who I remember, who I loved in the 80s. And it really works in terms of pulling these people who are maybe slipping towards the margin back into the foreground.
I don't like playing with you. I don't like the things that you do.
Seeing Sonia Boyce in the British Pavilion in Venice, sort of what's not to enjoy, Of course, there was a huge amount of excitement and nervousness in a way, because we kind of, even though me, Veronica Ryan or Claudette Johnson or me are not in that pavilion, we kind of, our history, in a sense, is in that pavilion with her.
You told me to reach out to.
In many ways, I really felt that she had made that work and made that pavilion for us.
Crowds have gathered to see Sonia's opening speech.
None of us should underestimate what it means for this show to be here right now. And it's just it's so special. It means so much to all of us who are Sonia's peers to see this work here now. It's very exciting. This is actually very, very overwhelming. Thank you to so many people. So many people. The reason why I started to cry when I was on that step was that there are many women artists in this crowd who should be in here. And so I want us to make a promise that they will be in here.
You began this championing of women artists and black women artists in the 80s. And yet it's taken all this time for the world to wake up.
40 years. But we've really got to make a promise. Things have got to change. Shift has got to happen. The shift has got to take place now.
There's no doubt that this year's Biennale has marked a moment of change. For Sonia, Zineb and Alberta, it's been transformative. And 3 days on, after the opening, comes an even greater surprise.
Sonia Boyce.
Oh my God!
Sonia wins the Golden Lion for Best National Pavilion.
Oh my gosh! They won the highest award. I think this is the highest award. Just trying to figure out what's going on. This is just beyond anything I imagined. Yeah, I was just shaking. My whole body was shaking. And I know I'm not talking any sense at any point right now, but that was amazing. That was just... How did that happen? Oh my goodness.